Max. Thank you, Patty, for amplifying it. Mic up, Max, mic up. And so welcome this morning. Our land and social justice acknowledgement. The land upon which this church sits is land that was stewarded by the Haudenosaunee people. It is land that is considered holy, and it is our obligation, our sacred obligation, to hold it as such. Our social justice acknowledgement goes along with our values of social justice in that we have also an obligation to create a place at the table, not just a place of inclusion, but a place where all have a voice that is heard, that is recognized, and that can be acted on. It is our obligation to make sure that we are people who stand up for those who are marginalized in society. And so I call you to be present, to take that moment where you take in the space of our sanctuary for this Sunday morning. It's different every time. Last time we were together, we had gorgeous sunlight coming through. Today we have clouds and a little bit of cold. It's supposed to warm up. It's going to be Crocs and shorts weather. 40 degrees later this week. But take a moment just to let yourself be fully present and take in all of the senses that our sanctuary brings to us. Opening words this morning come from writer Mika Ideming, and they write, "You cannot love your neighbor while supporting or accepting systems and beliefs that crush, exploit, and dehumanize them. You cannot love your neighbor while accepting less for them and their family than you do for you and your own family." And these are the words of Mika Ideming. And so I invite you to find our words for our chalice lighting. Are you the chalice lighter this morning for this year? No, Wally, go ahead. Sorry, Wally, go. I wasn't sure who was. While Wally lights our chalice, I invite you to find our chalice lighting words in the order of service. And let us read those together. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve you, Spirit of freedom. I invite you to find hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. Patty will play us in, and then I invite you to sing or just enjoy music as your heart would be. hymn number 95. This is the time in our service where we take time to honor the joys, the sorrows, and the concerns, and all will be invited to come forward and share. Also, if you're remembering someone who has passed, you're welcome to take a stone and place it in the vase of remembrance. As has been my habit since almost over a year, when there was the terrible event in Israel, I am going to light a candle for peace throughout our world. I'm stumbling on my words today. I am going to light a candle for peace throughout our world and for all people who live there. I'm also including within that candle a remembrance of Sam Nordquist, transgender gentleman who was terribly harmed and killed. And of course, there's lots of vigils. I will share with you later about something that's happening in Buffalo. But I think in all of our hearts, we hold Sam and Sam's family. And so I invite you to come forward and share your joys and sorrows and concerns. Patty has the microphone, and I'll pass to whoever. I think Peter's going to lead us off.
I think that probably most of you are aware of the fact that Betsy died last week. If you weren't, I'm going to just pause for a moment to let you absorb that. It's been a week for me, and I have yet to absorb it. You can do it in 30 seconds, I think. I, of course, have been concentrating on nothing but that occurrence since that event last Monday. One of the things that we and Betsy's family and my family have worked towards is developing an obituary that we thought was appropriate. I think we've done it, and a plan for what we want to do with respect to a service here in this church for Betsy. I'm going to read you the, I'm not going to read you the obituary, that it's not a completely finished item as of now. I'm going to just read you the last paragraph of it, because this is something you're all going to be concerned with, I think. All are welcome to participate in a celebration of Betsy's life on March 22 at the Fun Church, 639 Main Street, starting at 11 o'clock, followed by refreshments. If this had been 3 years ago, before Betsy got very sick and wasn't able to be out in the community, I have no doubt in my mind that we'd have had an overcapacity of people here. She was very, very active in the community, and in so many aspects of it that there's no question in my mind that it had been huge. We may not have very many people at this event because she hasn't been active at all for the last 3 years. That's going to make us a little difficult job in trying to plan and anticipate how to put on this, but we'll do it. We've set the date now, and it's going to take every one of you here to participate in that and help put it together, I think, in anticipation of what could be a real capacity of people coming. So we've got a month, we got a lot of work to do.
I'm lighting a candle for Betsy. I'm really not, I haven't come to terms about living in a world without Betsy. I've known her for so many years, and I'm so lucky that she was my friend. So this is for our Betsy. And I'd also like to light a candle because Enzo Andrew Fibick was finally born this week. It took him 48 hours, and unfortunately also a cesarean, but Enzo was born. I am now a great-grandmother, and he seems to be very happy to be here, although he was reluctant to join us. He was way overdue and was very happy, I guess, where he was, but he's now in the world, and I light a candle for Enzo. A name my family is still adjusting to, but his mother discovered somehow early in her pregnancy that this child was an Enzo. So that.
Good morning. I have a small joy. I've been accepted to attend a ministry discernment event at the Methodist Theological School in Ohio on March 24th through 27th, I'll get reimbursed for my travel expenses, including setting foot for the very first time, and quite sedated, I'm sure, on an airplane. This is going to include a campus tour, a major visiting speaker, attending chapel, and sitting in on several classes I chose from a list, as well as exploring and wandering all over the campus. I do this partly because if I'm accepted to the school as part of its Unitarian Universalist House of Studies, I'll be doing all of my coursework, except for 2 of them, online from home, a block from here. So prior to graduation several years from now, I wanted to see the campus, and also it'll give me a nice chance to see what the classes are like. I selected some that I'm actually intending to take later when I'm enrolled, if I'm accepted to the school. Oh, and a potential sorrow, I will leave instructions if what keeps happening to planes happens to one of the 4 I'll be on during the trip. You may recall that under previous administrations, the United States hadn't had a major plane crash since 2009, and it has had several since the regime ceased power last month. So.
Is there anyone else who wishes to share? For all the joys, for all the sorrows, for the concerns, for the spirit of our dear Betsy.
I'm sorry, we have Francie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
She just said something. You need to unmute Francie.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I came in late. I don't know, words cannot say. I miss Betsy. She was one of the brightest lights of the UU Church in Niagara Falls, and may her light continue to shine with us. Thank you.
Is there anyone else online, Erica, that wanted to speak? Okay, thank you for drawing that. So again, for all the joys, for the sorrows, for the concerns, for spirit of our dear Betsy, for all of these, we give our best intentions, our best energy, and we bless them. Amen and a women. So for February, the theme that the UUA puts forth, if people wish to draw on it, is the theme of inclusion. And it fits with our theme today of love thy neighbor as thyself. And there are 2 writers who I want to share some of their words. The first is writer Do Zamatoma, who wrote this. When I see you through my eyes, I think that we are different. When I see you through my heart, I know we are the same. The next is probably one of my favorite presidents of all time, of course now of beloved memory, President Jimmy Carter, who wrote this. We become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different hopes, different yearnings, and different dreams. There is also a book by writer Alexandra Penfold, which I had ordered and it didn't come in time. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about this book because it goes with the theme and some of the aspects of it. Alexandra wrote a book called All Are Welcome. And somewhere in the future, I'll bring it for a story for all ages. But it just fits so well. All Are Welcome is a story that follows school children through their day, from their arrival at school, their daily activities, and then as they go home. And the message that gets repeated over and over and over again is that no matter what your race, your family makeup, your clothes, your religion, your ability, everyone belongs. And it's a beautiful story which gives all the different ways that kids arrive at school, the things that go through their day. I love the part of the story, I got to see a little bit of it, just about how people eat differently during the day, which sometimes we don't always pay attention to that, kids from different races, cultures. So in that theme of inclusion and loving our neighbor, I hope to bring that book to us, but I want to cite it. The name of it is All Are Welcome, Alexandra Penfold. And it's just a beautiful story that goes in that theme again of how do we all love our neighbors? And with that thought in mind, we take up our offertory, which goes to serve the very good works of this church. And so our sermon theme this morning is love thy neighbor as thyself. I'll get more into where the roots from that phrase come from and how it also connects for us. But there's so many important parts and so many people right now who are speaking, one of whom is Pope Francis, who shared these remarks regarding his feelings about the mass deportation plan that was taking place in our country. His overall statement was that in doing so, it removes the migrants from their inherent worth and dignity as people. How wonderful that is to hear the Pope use words that are part of a base of our faith, but truly we are hearing this from so many other faiths too. When the bishop at the National Cathedral gave her address back in January, she also invoked the words, the inherent dignity of all people. That has been part of our number one principle, fused now into the values of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. But it's always heartwarming to hear people use that. President Obama used that in his closing speech. For those who don't know, his grandmother was part of the UU Church in Hawaii. Interesting little tidbit. The Pope goes on to say that in the book of Exodus, that God is always close, incarnate in migrant and refugee, and pointed out that Jesus himself had been expelled from his own land when his family fled to Egypt and had to take refuge in a society and culture foreign to his own. The Pope goes on to say that Jesus loved everyone with a universal love and taught us to see, again, that dignity in all people without exception. And while we are parts of many faiths or agnostic or atheism or secularism, I think that there can be an agreement, whether one believes in Jesus or not, that that phrase of a person standing in their faith, acknowledging the universal love and dignity of all people, is an important part of how we express our self-love as we then go forth and love others. In fact, I had mentioned Jimmy Carter, and aside from the that's good, Sue, the politics of Mr. Carter, he was, I don't think there's many people that would argue this, a living, breathing example of someone who lived in their faith every single day. And oftentimes spoke for the greater truth. He was an advocate for LGBTQ individuals. He was an advocate for migrants. He was an advocate for the marginalized. And again, how did he show that? He built houses. He built houses for the poor. He built houses, sure that people had a home. And when we talk about loving others as we love ourselves, it is about creating home, whether it's the physical structures that are done by the groups that do the various house building, or what we do inside this sanctuary to build a home that welcomes the stranger. That's an important piece. It's easy to get settled in our comfort. There's an old joke about new people come to a church and they sit in a particular seat and everybody gives them the stare because they are sitting in the seats that the Fulbrights have always sat in for 43 years. And again, people don't know when they come to visit where they're sitting, what they're doing. We all have our spaces. I've had them too when I've been in places. But in welcoming the stranger, we allow for that. Like, come in, sit. It's okay. Instead of, you're sitting somewhere you should not be sitting. We don't do that as much as you use, but I've certainly seen that in some other spaces and places. And that's just one small aspect of how, in being a welcoming space that loves the neighbor as we love ourselves, we make sure everybody has a place and a space. Pope Francis talked about how one must recognize the rights of nations to take care of themselves, but greater than that is the keeping safe of communities and making sure within those communities that all people are free from poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration from the environment. All of these things, the Pope said, damage the dignity of men and women and of families, and it places them in a state of particular vulnerability and defenselessness. And in these times that we are living in, we certainly are seeing these actions taking place. And we ask the question, what can I do? Or how do I feel about that? We also have inside some of us, many of us, maybe with us, sometimes moments where we are not loving ourselves enough to be able to have enough energy to extend that out to others. This has certainly been a time where our energies have been put upon, where it's just hard to get out of bed for some people every day, or to follow the things that they know might be best for themselves. Even just hydrating enough every day can be a task when you are feeling the immensity of all the other parts of the world. And when you are put upon in those ways, or you're bringing that in, it's like the old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you do not have reserves in yourself, it makes it that much harder to give to others. And if you become totally depleted, it also makes it that much easier for that other aspect of not loving others, of not welcoming the stranger, to find that way in. Because if you're being so self-preserving, you're not necessarily thinking about how to reach out for others. And it happens to all of us. We all find ourselves in those places. And again, it's usually coming back to that self-care. But when we aren't doing that at our best, we are screaming at people in traffic, right, Max? I'm not saying that he does it. He gets. We are acting up or saying things. We have impatience. We might even say something to another that in our best of moments we might not say, but when you're just hanging on by a thread, when you're feeling frail and vulnerable, those things come out. They're part of our roots. And again, if we have not examined them or looked at them or even worked on them, it happens. And so hopefully we give each other a little grace. Hopefully as a community we give each other a little grace. And we work to do better as we move forward. I believe it was Maya Angelou who in part of one of her addresses said, if people knew better, then they will do better. And when they learn how to do better, they will continue to do that. I misquoted her exactly, but it's that same aspect of if people are doing something wrong or something that's offensive, it is the hope that if they learn and educate, then they will do better. And certainly I've seen that in all my years of working in counseling and working with families and even working with people who are in the criminal justice system. More times than not, people didn't have other people helping them to see or to know and giving them the support so that they could be their best self. These, again, are things that we, especially as UUs, we think about this. It was part of one of our principles, that self-exploration about what we believe to be true. And when I say we, that's an individual, because we don't necessarily have a collective creed that says, this is what you must believe and do. We acknowledge that every person goes forward and figures out for themselves with the best information they can have at any moment, what is real, what is true. And how does that knowledge then bring me into community and into covenant with those within our church? So I'd say I was kind of get to the root. There's a Bible verse which says, love thy neighbor as thyself. It appears in Matthew and in Leviticus. And it is a command that comes from that faith root, that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. It is sometimes called the greatest commandment, that in so doing, you are doing the task that shows the greatest love. And of course, within our values, which now incorporate our principles didn't go away. Principles are still here. They're just branded in a different fashion with some different aspects, such as independence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. These are the names of our values that were brought forth from the General Assembly last summer. But what I love most, if you've seen some of the symbols that are there, that love is in the middle. Love is part of the number one principle when we talked about inherent worth and dignity. And now, in its concept, love is the center cog of the wheel from which all of these values come forth. And these are, again, the things that we work on together to try and make a place that is just, that is welcoming, that is safe, and inviting for anyone who wants to enter. Any essay or any talk about inclusion in society has to talk about the concept of actively creating these environments in some way, shape, or form. And so while we take that inner inventory, we work on what we believe or think and make sure that we are making sure our cup is getting filled, not maybe so much from others, but we can do that in our own ways with our energies, our intentions, and our actions. But then the bringing together. And I believe that's a big part of what this church does. Later, you're going to hear something from Teresa and others about how that comes together with how this church, this fun church, does those things. So hopefully we will be beacons. We will be that chalice light that goes out into the world, that shows and gives diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the greater world. And so I invite you to talk back. Talk back is the opportunity for you to say what's on your mind, say anything that you reflected upon, challenge, question, or just speak about anything that in today's readings or other has touched you or made you think about something. So I invite you to talk back. And we have the mic too, which we can bring about. It takes a moment, people have to gather their thoughts.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
The whole idea of love your neighbor is so basic. I mean, it shouldn't be something that people even have to talk about anymore. We should just have it in our hearts. This whole thing of diversity and equality and inclusion, how those could become bad words is like terrifying. So I think it's good for us to talk about caring about each other. People are in a good talkative mood today.
It's okay. It's an opportunity, but you don't have to. Sometimes it moves. And it's okay to disagree as well. I welcome that.
I guess I was thinking about being like the thought that we all are immigrants of some sort or another from Africa originally, right? Maybe. But at any rate, I was in a cab a couple days ago, and there was a man that had emigrated from Yugoslavia. But the conversation went political, and he was espousing how about illegal immigrants, don't belong here and should go back and all of this. And, I'm sitting there just not knowing exactly how to respond. But I guess we have to pick our battles in this current conversation too. I guess my battle is for the birth rate children for right now, the immigrant children at the border that really didn't have a choice. So that just, gave me some thought because of what your topic was. When I was in graduate school, we had a course called multiculturalism and diversity. I think it was something like that. At any rate, it was described similar to Jimmy Carter, the mosaic. Instead of a mosaic, they spoke of it being like a tossed salad, that we are like a tossed salad instead of a melting pot where we're losing all of our uniqueness and special qualities.
We were talking after church last week about how difficult it is to live the principles and apply them in the current climate. It does go back to Jesus' command to love your enemies, because there can be a difference between a neighbor and an enemy. There's a distinction. And loving our enemies is getting harder and harder. In reaction to Archbishop Buddy speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast after the inauguration, a number of churches of a certain type, who shall remain nameless, have begun preaching on the sin of empathy.
I just finished reading John Meacham's book on John Lewis, and John Lewis was an amazing man, and he truly said that the way he got through the beatings and everything that he went through was that he loved the person who was beating him. I don't know how you do that, but that is what he espoused.
That'd be a good topic to explore for the future, because I've heard that from Holocaust survivors and what they had to do. But thank you for bringing that up, yeah. Did you want the microphone? Oh, okay, sorry. Is there anyone else who wishes to share or talk back? As always, I appreciate your comments, critiques, additions, information. It's a way that we intentionally listen to each other, which is so important, again, with our creation of community, but it also ministers to me. And for that, I am truly grateful, and I thank you very much for that. Our closing hymn is going to be number 332, Perfect Singer. So I invite you to find that in your books. Patty will play us in, and then we shall sing.
Perfect singer, songs of earth, rise on every field and hearth. Let our voices sound again, ancient songs of joy and pain. All your creatures strive for life, suffer hard in angry strife. Seek compassion, find release in the covenant of peace. Sing a sacred melody for the justice that shall be. Let our harmonies resolve dissonance instead. Steadfast love, steadfast seeker, find our song, woven into life's made strong. Let the patterns of surprise kindle hope with each sunrise.
For announcements. Teresa, would this be an appropriate time to do what you...
So last week, I think there were 4 of us here. So people didn't get to hear that we're starting our pledge drive. We're using the 7 principles as our theme. So what each one of you should have found in your order of service are the original 6 principles that the church started with when Unitarians and the Universalists joined. And something that I learned is that every 15 years, it is required that we revisit those principles. So I gave you the original 6 principles and a copy of the 7 principles that we have now. And we also have had a change or something added that we're going to be talking about as well, which aren't principles but values. But today we're going to talk about the first principle, and I just wanted to say, Betsy worked with us. I don't know how many years, Patty, we did the pledge drives together. So a long time. And so it feels funny not to have her working with us. And we wanted to honor her. She lived the principles pretty much every single day. And so I would like everybody to think about how you use the principles in your daily life. I think if more people thought about that stuff, we would have a much better society. But I'd also like to dedicate this pledge drive to Betsy, in her memory, because she lived these principles. So today we're doing the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we think this man said it the best.
I would just like to remind everyone that my first lecture on the history of American religious liberty will be a half hour. It was scheduled for 12:40, but we run a little long, so I want to allow people time for the potluck. So a half hour after service ends, I will begin my lecture here. It's the first of 4, and it's going to set up the whole story of the religious liberty we have in America as understood by the Supreme Court. And I also have, this is neither a joy nor sorrow nor announcement, but this seemed the time to do it. I have a request. If there is anyone here at the end of my lecture that would be willing to take me to the Rite Aid drive-thru on the corner of 10th and Pine, and then drop me off home $4 from there after getting my prescriptions. I've been out of prescriptions for several days, and last night I ran out of the last of my heart meds. So I'd really like to get there, but I don't trust walking there and back without having already taken those medications. So anybody who would like to volunteer to take me to that drive-through and then drop me off home, I would really appreciate it. If you can only take me to the pharmacy and leave me there, that's still better than nobody taking me there at all. So that's the end of announcements and requests.
Does anyone else have any, oops, I think I'm off. Does anyone else have any announcements for the good of the congregation or the community? I'd say next Sunday, March the 2nd at 7 p.m. at Westminster Presbyterian on Delaware Avenue in the city of Buffalo, there is going to be a community healing, unity, and remembrance that's going to be put together by various faith leaders, of which I'm going to be one of them. There's also going to be music by the Gay Men's Choir and the Westminster Chorus. The purpose of this is to bring people together so they have a place for their grief, for their mourning, for whatever they may be feeling in the shadow of the murder of Sam Nordquist. In addition to Sam, there have been many people who have been harmed, injured, and aggressed. And so it is the hope by doing this gathering, which hopefully is not a one and done, that there can be more opportunities to create unity in community. That's not my word. That was actually Jonathan Van Ness speaking to Whoopi Goldberg. But I loved it so much, I want to bring it into more areas. So if you are available next Sunday, you're welcome to come. The group is also working on a Zoom possibility, and I'll share that with Erica. Hopefully we can put that on our Facebook page. So if people can't come downtown, you could still be present through Zoom. Anything else? And so for our benediction today, the words of Edwin Markham. Now these words may sound similar or familiar, but this is the author of this, and I'm going to share Edwin's words. He drew a circle to shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in. Words of Edwin Markham. And so we're going to extinguish our chalice. Wally, you want to extinguish the chalice? Thank you so much. And as Wally is doing that, I invite you to find our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Max, do you have a gift of some music for us? Do you want to mic up so Patty doesn't have to?
So this is just a love song. You're too good to me to be real. The things that I feel, I'm worried I might cross a line. I'm not afraid to lose what we have. I'm not so sad that you can't be mine. But it's hard to tell whether I'm lost or I've fallen under your spell. Sleepless, sleepless, you and I don't know about you, but I'm having a really good night. Don't say good night, 'cause I'm staying sleepless. Sleepless. I can't tell when to stay or to go. Believe me, I know this won't come as a shock to you. Maybe it's because I don't try. I've never been the one to feel loved from a FaceTime. This year's taking a toll on me. I wanna be free. Baby, I just need the city. I can't afford to lose what we got. Can't help what I want. But it's hard to tell whether I'm lost or I've fallen under your spell. Sleepless, sleepless, you and I don't know about you, but I'm having a really good night. Don't say good night, 'cause I'm staying sleepless.